Hello, this is an introduction to troubleshooting your Autobailer. In this series of videos, we will go over the first steps of troubleshooting when you have on-ping, along with what to do once you are in the field. We will go over the various alarms on-ping has and how to handle these alarms in a step-by-step manner. We will go over what to do with on-ping when there is a motor over current alarm, a count sensor alarm, a home sensor alarm, a low flow alarm, a lost communications alarm, a low pressure alarm, an overcurrent alarm, an overvoltage alarm, high pressure alarm, and a stuck canister. You will need to get an on-ping account to be able to remotely monitor the Autobailers. The website is on the PowerPoint slide, and the contact information to start your account will be given to you. You will receive emails whenever an alarm is tripped. You will need to log into the website to be able to reset the alarm. Otherwise, you will need to go to the Autobailer with an HMI to reset any alarms. In some cases, you can press the reset button and that will fix the problem. In many cases, however, you will need to go to the Autobailer. This is the FARV1. If there was an alarm, the status would be red and say alarm here. And this is the alarm reset button, where you can hit reset, then hit right. And as long as there is good communication with the well, the alarm should reset in that way. We will first go over the motor overcurrent alarm. This alarm tends to occur with the overcurrent alarm and overvoltage alarm. This alarm should be cleared by pressing the reset button, as I showed you earlier. If the alarm does not clear, or if it clears and immediately trips on the next run, you should go to the well and continue down the troubleshooting document.
This shows you how to clear an alarm using the HMI. Hit the alarm reset button on the home screen. If the canister is at the surface, remove the bolts and spacers on the head carefully. Once the bolts have been removed, use the HMI in manual mode and manually move the canister downhole. Once the head is resting in the down position, reinstall the bolts and spacers.
Secondly, we will look at the count sensor alarm. There are two different issues that can be associated with this alarm. In the first, there is an associated low voltage alarm that trips with the count sensor alarm. If this happens, feel free to clear the alarm by clicking the reset button as mentioned above. If that does not work, you will need to go to the Autobailer and check the electrical system. If the count sensor alarm is triggered by itself or with another alarm besides the low voltage alarm, you need to go check the Autobailer in the field. While sometimes the alarm is false, resetting this alarm when there is an issue can cause a lot more damage and make repairs more difficult.
Check your electrical system, starting with the panel. Check the breaker box and disconnect as well. If you cannot find the problem there, you will need to get an electrician to check the power line. If you come to the machine and find the cable off the pulley, place the cable back on the pulley. Check the cable for nicks in the cable liner. You may need to cut and reattach the cable to the canister if you find any nicks. This alarm can also be triggered if the snap ring holding the assembly on the pulley shaft begins failing. In this case, replacing the ring or the pulley assembly is warranted. One other possibility is that the count sensor is no longer close enough to see the pulley assembly. Move the sensor closer in this case. Look for the flashing light on the back of the sensor.
We will now look at the home sensor alarm. If a home sensor alarm is triggered by itself, it is okay to reset the alarm. If the alarm is triggered again after it is reset, that is when you will need to go to the well and check it.
If the temperature has been below freezing, the sensor may have iced up. Use either carburetor or electrical cleaner to melt the ice on the sensor. It will also clean off the sensor in case the oil is causing an issue. Every once in a while, the head does not fall when the canister descends. Cleaning the area around the head fixes this issue. PB Blaster also helps. One other cause is that the home sensor has moved. In this case, adjust the sensor closer to approximately 3/16 of an inch. If need be, add a washer to the bolt if you cannot move the sensor closer.
The low flow alarm is the next alarm we will examine. This alarm is triggered when yesterday's flow or volume, they're the same number however, is less than the expected volume. The best way to check on what is going on is to click on the last unload seconds box and look at the decline of the unload times. If the decline is slow, it is best to either add time between runs and or increase the depth of the canister runs. It can be useful to shut down the baler for a day or two to let the fluid level rise once you are below the stable fluid level. In general, if you're trying to pump the well down, increase the depth of the canister runs. If the unload times decline quickly or went to zero in more than one run, try lowering the canister or increasing the time between runs. You will want to monitor the last unload seconds. If that does not work, go to the Autobailer and start with step 6 of the low flow procedure.
If you are using the HMI, hit the More Info button to see yesterday's average offload seconds time. If this time has been slowly coming down, add time and/or increase the depth the canister run. If the time suddenly drops, do a test run and try to diagnose the issue. The most likely issue is the compressor. Check the compressor and see if there is any pressure. If there is not, check that the valve in the back is closed. Then, check and see if the compressor is turned on. If that is not the issue, check that the GFCI plug is not tripped. If it is, reset the plug. Finally, check and see if the breaker was tripped. Make sure to empty the compressor of water once you get it going. If the electrical going into the compressor is okay, and the compressor is still not working, replace the compressor. If it is not the compressor, place the HMI into manual mode and check that the solenoid is working. Unplug the line from the solenoid and to the machine. Hit the Turn on Air button and check that air is coming out of the tubing. If air does not come out of the tubing, replace the solenoid valve. If the solenoid valve is okay, plug the air line back in. Hit the Turn on Air button again after opening up the valve on the check line. If you feel air, go to the flow switch. If you do not feel air and can hear air moving in the casing, you will need to pull the canister. If it is the flow switch, take the top off and clean thoroughly. See the video on maintaining the flow switch for instructions on doing that. There is a chance you will need to take the elbow on the bottom off to clean out any debris that may have accumulated there. Check that air is not leaking out of the top of the head. If this is the case, pull the head off and clean the inside of the head. You will want to clean off the top of the canister as well. If you feel air coming out of the side of the casing, you will need to pull the canister out. Try replacing the rings on the discharge head first. Many times this will solve the issue. We have also seen material get jammed in the discharge nose. Inspect all the openings in the discharge nose. If this does still not find the issue, pull the canister out and check for a hole.
We will look at the lost communications alarm. This is triggered when the panel loses communication with on-ping. There are two ways this can occur. First, the power is cut to the well. Second, the modem needs to be reboot. When this alarm occurs, check with your field personnel and see if the power has been cut. If power was lost in a thunderstorm, definitely check your fuses and breakers to make sure nothing was blown or tripped there. Most often, however, it will be the power company. In that case, you have to wait for the power to be restored. If there is power to the baler and panel, then you go to the baler and reboot the modem.
Open the panel and turn off power in the panel. Wait approximately 15 seconds and turn the power back on. Wait for the lights to light up. Check if communication has been restored using on-ping. If that does not work, try again letting the power stay off for a longer time. If that does not work, the modem will need to be replaced.
Next, we will look at the low pressure alarm. This alarm is triggered if the detected pressure on the flow line is too low. The pressure this alarm is triggered at can be set using the HMI. If this alarm goes off, you will be going to the field to check it.
We initially show where you can set the trip points for the low pressure and high pressure alarms. Once the alarm is tripped, go to the machine and check the flow line. Check the tubing. Check that the check valve is functioning properly. If everything else looks good, run the machine and check if the pressure changes as the canister is unloading. If it does not, you need to replace the pressure sensor.
Next up is the overcurrent alarm. This alarm usually occurs with an overvoltage alarm, and it may be triggered with a motor overcurrent alarm. In general, clearing this alarm remotely clears the issue. If the alarm doesn't clear, or if it clears and triggers again the next run, it is time to go to the Autobailer to check the machine.
In general, any issue with an overcurrent alarm will be the same as a motor overcurrent alarm. Go back to that explanation for what to do. If the canister is stuck downhole, see the stuck canister troubleshooting video coming up.
The overvoltage alarm usually occurs with the overcurrent alarm. Treat it like an overcurrent alarm mentioned above. Reset the alarm, and if that does not work, check the machine. The high pressure alarm is the next alarm we will look at. If this alarm triggers, it will always be a field issue. You will need to go to the Autobailer and check the flow line. It could also be an issue with the pressure sensor, so check that if the flow line is not the issue.
We initially show where you can set the trip points for the low pressure and high pressure alarms. Check that any valves along the flow line are not closed. Check the flow line for plugs or other material. Check that the pressure transducer is working.
Finally, the stuck canister is when the motor overcurrent alarm triggers while the baler is down hole. This is something that must be taken care of at the Autobailer.
Initially, clear the alarm. Go into manual mode and move the canister up and down, trying to break through the obstruction. Use different speeds and run-ups in this process. If that does not work, remove the head and pour 10 gallons acid down the hole. If that does not work, pour xylene down the hole. Keep in mind the xylene may damage the lining of the cable.
Thank you for your time, and thank you again for choosing Autobailer.